Welcome to Decrypt, Asia's first blockchain and cryptocurrency podcast. I'm your host, Tushar. Each week, we take a deep dive into the Asian blockchain scene with investors, technologists, and industry insiders. Go to decrypt.asia to subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Telegram to join in the discussions. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So before we jump into what you're building, could you give us a quick introduction about yourself, how you came to be involved in the blockchain and cryptocurrency space, and what you're up to right now?
Sure. I come from a background in systems engineering and was very fortunate to be involved with some open source projects early in my career, and then moved on to taking a role as CTO in a fast-growing company. After that, I did venture capital for a few years, and actually, the project Tangem is the first project in a few years that I dropped everything for and completely dedicated to. And when it comes to blockchain, I think, being generally a geek, it popped on my radar back in 2009 and 10. Just reading news on Hacker News, and I was always mostly interested from the start in its potential to become a new foundation layer for the internet and the business processes on the internet. And much less interested in its monetary functions and value and like all the potential of basically making some money on it. And actually, when it started getting a lot more loud on everyone's radar, maybe a few years later, around 2013, 14, 15, then I actually tried to maybe instinctively and reactively distance myself a little bit from it, because most of the projects that were capitalizing on the speculative aspect of Bitcoin and other emergent blockchain technologies, they were obvious to like an eye of an engineer. They were obviously just trying to, on the side of hype rather than real innovation, and only very few select projects were quite interesting and potentially groundbreaking. And so when we as a team, Tangem as a project, it grows around and grew around this very rare team of secure microelectronics engineers. So when we came together, it became obvious immediately that this is one of the rare projects that is incidentally associated with blockchain and can make a difference in this field. But this is one of those rare projects that are unapologetically unique and potentially can start a new industry or open up new avenues of user behavior and all of that. So yeah, I didn't hesitate to throw my weight in, and now we're working it quite hard and quite intensely. And otherwise, before Tangem, I was interested in just a handful of blockchain projects. I think 21 was quite interesting, which later pivoted into Earn.com and was later acquired by Coinbase. 21 was very interesting because like the audacity of their vision of Putin basically turning every device with a chip in it into a blockchain cryptocurrency generating device. So they were partnering with Qualcomm, was one of the investors, who were actually trying to turn every smartphone, every smart TV into a source, into a cryptocurrency miner, not for monetary value, of course, but mostly to restart, to like put another layer, like blockchain layer on top of every online interaction, M2M, like machine to machine or user to server. And another project that really I got my attention very early on, and I'm still tracking it, was Zcash as the first successful and popular implementation of this new zero knowledge proof technology as applied to blockchain, which to my mind is fascinating because it mathematically guarantees anonymity online, which might be the holy grail, because like internet unlocked so many avenues of exchange of human knowledge and like interaction and business online, but all of that is essentially based on very crude concepts of like communication, and there's some cryptography involved, but it's like sometimes easily compromised or broken or blocked, whereas blockchain technology it's very much uncensorable. It's because of its decentralized distributed nature, and the only downside is it's extremely public. So every blockchain transaction is visible and accessible to everyone in the world. Whereas what zero knowledge technology does, it essentially guarantees that those transactions and interactions online, they are completely impossible to trace or to monitor. I mean, more or less. Yeah. Right. So those are the projects I was tracking.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting. And I know you have some fascinating ideas and views on several things. And I want to dig into all of those. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about your project Tangem. Could you tell us what Tangem does?
Right. So Tangem is a hardware microelectronic technology that is currently based on the latest generation of secure enclave chips. Right now we're using a chip from Samsung, but there are several companies producing this type of chips, and these chips are simultaneously possessed two very important properties. One, they are extremely secure. This is the type of chip that is in every iPhone, responsible for Apple Pay. And the reason Apple Pay requires a separate chip is because it contains very important credit card data, like initialized by Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and other companies. And even if your iPhone is stolen, like in a very advanced lab, there might be a chance they'll get the data of the primary memory of your iPhone, let's say your pictures or contacts, but they will essentially never be able to hack into that Apple Pay chip, because the chip itself was from the ground up designed to be unhackable in such situations. So anyone steals your iPhone, much of your data could be in the hands of very sophisticated attackers, could be compromised, but your credit card data on that chip is can never be compromised. So those chips were developed for those secure applications. They're used in the military, in government applications like passports, secure IDs like access cards for like confidential information access, all of that. So we use the very latest generation of those chips. And the one of the properties is security, and the other property, which was only combined with that secure aspect last year, is enough power to do elliptic curve cryptography in real time on the chip in fractions of a second. This is a smart card chip, so it doesn't require a battery. All it requires for its functionality is an NFC antenna. So we actually produce, based on this hardware technology, we produce special plastic cards. They are slightly thinner and slightly smaller than your usual credit card form factor. And they have this NFC antenna inside and the secure chip. And through NFC, they can communicate with any NFC-enabled smartphone, which is any recent iPhone and any flagship Android device from any manufacturer, like Samsung, Huawei, and all of the other ones. And it can communicate very securely with any smartphone. And what we achieved with, so we basically took this chip technology and we developed our own operating system. You can call it firmware. In the industry, it's usually called COS, Card Operating System. And we developed it from the ground up. The firmware is completely specific to blockchain applications. And in the end, what the product does is the chip creates or can create a private key inside itself using its own random number generator that is completely secure. And it creates the private key, which means that nobody knows this private key. Only the chip does know the private key. And it becomes basically a Bitcoin or Ethereum wallet. And this wallet is completely tied to this smart card. So while you're holding this smart card in your hand, because the private key is only on the chip, it can never be copied, then basically the wallet is physical. And while you're holding the smart card in your hand, you have access to the value. If you lose it, you lose access to that value, and essentially you lose the value that is inside that wallet. But also, if you give it to another person, you essentially transfer the whole value that is contained within that chip to another person. So we call this smart card product, we call it smart banknote, because to most people, it is essentially usable as banknotes. So banknotes are very cool, like real paper banknotes, like United States dollar or any other currency, because every banknote, it's like as if it's a bank account. Like every single paper banknote is a separate bank account that you can, like, that anyone can open anywhere in the world without any limitation. You know, you just go somewhere and you can sell some stuff or sell some services or do some work, and you'll get this paper money as if it was a bank account. You can close it anywhere in the world at any time by just giving the paper banknote away, and essentially getting some, goods or services back for it. And you can combine or divide by exchanging like smaller bills for larger ones, and vice versa, and all of that. And I mean, for hundreds of years, we had coins and banknotes in circulation, so they're very normal to us. But this is truly like one of the miracles of civilization to have cash monetary system. And I think when we are talking about blockchain and cryptocurrencies, we often don't understand that we utterly and solely lacking those aspects of paper cash, like being able to freely physically exchange it and secure it, and get into some money or spend some money, because with cryptocurrencies it's all still very tacky. Like the interface is very, very tacky. So by using this new hardware, secure microelectronics technology, we are turning cryptocurrencies physical, and we're solving the security problems of cryptocurrencies, not by magically somehow, making them go away, but by converting them from digital security issues into physical security issues. Like if you have a digital wallet with some cryptocurrency, you have to think about, if it's on your phone or if it's on your computer or if it's online, you have to think about your devices being protected or being hacked. If your smartphone can be hacked, or if you forget your passphrase, or if the service you're using online, like Coinbase or some exchange, is going to be hacked, and all of that. So it's a whole bunch of digital security issues that you have to educate yourself on and think about. And most people in the world, they're not very savvy like in those terms. But when we converted back to physical security, we suddenly realized that there's 7 billion people in the world who know exactly how to use paper cash money, and the set of skills that they have around paper cash, like they understand that it has value, that you have to keep it secure, that if you lose it, you lose the value, and if you give it to another person, you transfer the value, all of that. We can immediately let everyone in the world apply all of those paper cash skills to cryptocurrency. So that's, I think,
Right.
the short version of what we're doing.
Sure. So let's get into a little bit more detail of how Tangem actually works and what the customer journey looks like. So you mentioned Tangem Note is a prepaid card. And so do you go to 7-Elevens and other convenience stores and buy it? And then is there any other place where you can buy it? And then once you've bought this banknote or the Tangem Note, how do you use it? You mentioned that there's capability for smartphones, any smartphone with NFC capability to accept it, but how does it exactly work? Could you walk us through that customer journey?
Right. So basically, Tangem is a hardware technology company. Technically, we don't even touch cryptocurrency in our business. And for distribution, basically to distribute our products and get them into customers' hands, we rely on a network of third parties, which are right now limited to Singapore and Hong Kong. And there's a few stores in each of these territories. And the way it happens, so we manufacture notes, and when they come out of the factory, they are fully ready for work, but they're not yet loaded with cryptocurrency. So we distribute these empty smart banknotes among the stores, and when a customer comes to a store and wants to get some Bitcoin and essentially or in physical form on a Tangem card, then the customer just pays money in paper cash or credit card, and in return they get our smart card, our smart banknote, and in the moment of sale, the store initializes the banknote, which essentially transfers the denomination of the banknote, which are right now we sell in two denominations of these cards. It's 0.01 Bitcoin, which is around 60 USD right now, and 0.05 Bitcoin, which is around 300 USD right now. And the customer makes a payment for this, and the store initializes and they transfer cryptocurrency to the card, and from then on it's a fully functional real smart banknote with the full denomination inside the chip inside it. So you can say, like, from then on the customer has real physical Bitcoin in their hand, and if they so wish, they can just have it forever, like physically. They can go home, put it in their safe, or give it as a gift to their friends and family, or use it as physical payment to anyone who understands Bitcoin and can understand the technology of Tangem. And so that's step one, acquiring it. And step two, they use yes, you can use it as gifts, or you actually there's one store in Singapore that can sell you precious metals for like if you come to them with Tangem cards loaded with Bitcoin, they can take it as payment and sell you some gold or silver bullion. And there are other shops that can give you fiat money at the current rate of Bitcoin for your Tangem cards. So you can like sell it back or exchange it back for goods or money. But even if those sellers are hard to come by, or you want to, you don't want to go to them for some reason, you can also use your smartphone. And what will happen, the smartphone can extract the full value of the banknote, of the smart banknote, from the smart banknote to any wallet you designate. And the destination wallet can be an exchange or Coinbase or another hot or cold wallet. Whatever it is, you can extract the value. And once you extract the value, you can use an exchange to change it back to fiat online, or do anything you want. You can send it digitally to anyone in the world. So these smart banknotes, you can use them both physically and digitally. Physically, you can just give it to another person as payment, and they will check with their smartphone that the banknote is authentic and it has the right balance, and they can accept it as if it was a Bitcoin transaction. Only this one would be a physical transaction, like a physical Bitcoin transaction. And you can use it also digitally by extracting the funds to another wallet.
Right. Right. And is this card reusable? Can I keep topping it up and keep using it versus having to acquire a new empty card and top it up from a convenience store or a 7-Eleven every time?
Right. So the latest generation of the cards are completely reusable, like forever. So we say for like, I wouldn't call it a user journey, but a user learning curve. So for very new customers that are just, they have heard about Bitcoin. And by the way, our own research shows that there are at least 2 billion people in the world that have heard about Bitcoin.
Wow, I didn't know
that. Yeah, actually, it was surprising. Even back in 2015, there's research that shows over 80% of Americans, like North Americans, US and Canada, were aware of Bitcoin. And that's like 3 years ago, before the ultimate craze. But by now, we estimate at least 2 billion people in the world are aware of Bitcoin. And most of them are curious to try a little bit. But only... like if we define active Bitcoin users as someone that does at least 100 USD worth of crypto every month, like does something with it, right? Just buy it or sell it or transfer it. If we count those users, then by our estimate, it's below 5 million and it's not growing, it's actually fallen. So there are billions of people that know about Bitcoin, but only a handful of millions that are actually using it, which is crazy. In the history of humanity, this is maybe the first product or concept that is so well advertised and marketed, but the barriers to entry are so high that only a tiny fraction of a percentage point actually converts to active users. So to like, if we talk about the user's learning curve, when they first see a Tangem note in a store, and it's not 7-Eleven yet, but we are available in some stores, like street-level stores in Hong Kong and Singapore, and we're negotiating with more countries around the world to make it more easily and more widely available. So to a newcomer that just heard about Bitcoin on the news or somewhere else, they come to the store and they see this physical banknote, smart banknote, and to them, at first, it's just a banknote. It's just a high-tech, extremely secure banknote that carries Bitcoin inside. But then as they start learning about the card and Bitcoin, they understand that the same card they got at the store as a banknote, it's actually a fully fledged hardware wallet. So it's completely reusable. They can use it forever. It's extremely secure. It has a slightly different use case compared to other hardware wallets or software wallets, but it is very, very convenient for them, and they can actually top it up with any amount of Bitcoin, and they can spend any fractional amounts of Bitcoin from it. And then as they go forward and as we develop our own infrastructure, every card can in the future also become a payment card, as if it was a Visa or MasterCard. And that depends on our partnerships with companies like PundiX and other companies around the world that are working hard to make it easy for merchants to accept cryptocurrency payments. So essentially, you, like with Tangem, you go to a store, you buy physical Bitcoin as if it was a smart banknote, but then later on, as you keep learning, it turns out that your smart banknote is also a hardware wallet. And then as the world develops, it turns out that every Tangem card is also a universal payment card that is completely independent of any banking system, of any government. It's just global. It's always available. It doesn't depend on any company in the world. So that's what we're doing.
That is fascinating, actually. I never thought about how it could actually, just become like a Visa card eventually. So you mentioned that this card is actually a crypto wallet. So how do I get to know about this wallet's public address? You said it's reusable. So how do I send funds to it? Is there some sort of application which is tied to the card, which is perhaps on the phone? Or like, how does the whole mechanism actually work? Or is it actually like you can see the address on the card itself?
Right. So yeah, the whole information about the card is only on the chip. So everything outside the chip is completely open source. So the NFC protocol, the specification of that protocol, and the apps for our reference apps for the iPhone and Android are all open source. And that means that you can use them to scan the card with the iPhone or Android and see the public address immediately. And it also doesn't depend on our company at all. So because it's all open, any company, and we actually have partners around the world that are starting to do this, especially in China. Any company can develop this functionality into their own app, and their apps would be able to scan these banknotes and display the public address and do some other operations with it. Right now, yes, you have to have a phone with NFC in it, and that's again, it's any recent iPhone or any flagship Android device from any manufacturer has NFC in it, and you install a publicly available Tangem app from App Store or Play Store or APK for Android if you prefer, and then you touch the card against your phone, and the application will display the public address and some other data about the card, including the current balance that the application will check against the blockchain, and some other technical information.
Right. And what's your business model? How do you guys make money?
So right now, Tangem is purely a hardware technology company. We focus in every bit of resource and talent we have on manufacturing and the firmware development and security. So we already hired, actually more than once, we hired Kudelski Security, which is a huge Swiss company, a publicly listed company in Switzerland, that did a complete audit first on our security architecture and then on our firmware. And they concluded that the firmware of Tangem cards is constructed in a way that even if our company or any of our employees or engineers wanted to do something bad, like to introduce a backdoor or to copy the private key or anything like that. It is completely impossible. So not only the firmware is secure, but also it prevents any wrongdoing or from any external hackers, but also our company itself cannot do anything to compromise the security of the card. That was extremely important to us because we are a startup. We're just around 2 years old, and we don't want to make people, we don't want people to have to trust us. Of course, we are developing our brand of Tangem as a brand of trust and security, but until we've proven ourselves to millions and probably billions of customers, we want them to be able to look at trusted third parties like security companies that are auditing us, and to be able to trust them and to be able to trust our technology through their word, not on our word alone. So we invest in a lot in those security processes, and our whole business model is manufacturing these cards. We are focused on growth exclusively for the next maybe 2 or 3 years, which means that we're trying to distribute these cards at wholesale prices very, very close to our costs, and we are also trying to optimize manufacturing and streamline production to make it faster and more cost effective, and we'll pass the savings on to our distributors as well. And I think as we grow to to significant volumes, we'll be able to push the costs down even further and grow our margins, so that we can start thinking about profits later down the line. But right now, our whole focus is growth. And to make it clear, of course, we're a hardware technology company, but every smart card that we manufacture is quite powerful. It's essentially a blockchain computer. Every smart card is. So we are, of course, thinking about value-added services on top of this platform, but right now the whole focus is on very, very simple functionality.
And how much would this card end up costing approximately on average to the end user?
So when the end users are purchasing physical Bitcoin in our partner stores, the card is essentially free for them because they are buying physical Bitcoin at a certain rate, and the rate includes the store margin and includes the cost of the card. But I can tell you that wholesale prices for these cards, when the stores buy them in bulk, like hundreds of them or thousands of them, it's around $5 per card right now. And if the orders are much larger, like let's say 100,000 at once or 1 million cards at once, then the way we manufacture it, because it's all in mass production across our factories, then the cost can go down like to $3 and to $2. But right now we're manufacturing in relatively small volumes, like thousands of them and tens of thousands, and the cost is still at around $5. And that's the same cost that we're selling them wholesale to our distributors.
Right.
Now,
sorry.
We're also aware that because we really want to find a way for billions of people to use this technology, and I think when we scale to billions, we can, with some advances and some minor breakthroughs in the technology and manufacturing of it, we can probably get the cost down to a level where essentially it's comparable to the cost of producing high-quality paper banknotes. And a paper banknote like 100 USD or 50 USD or like 100 euro. The cost of production is public. You can look it up. It's maybe 20 to 30 cents for the top value paper bills. Like maybe a $1 bill is cheaper to produce, but 100 USD dollar bill, it's like 15, 20, 30 cents depending on like country and currency. And I think we can get within one, we can easily get within one order of magnitude from there, which means that this technology can be used for mass market adoption. And eventually, because many countries are now adopting or looking at adopting blockchain technology for their national like sovereign currency, and we're actually in talks with the Sovereign Project, which recently announced its partnerships with the Republic of Marshall Islands to produce their own cryptocurrency, like sovereign cryptocurrency. We're in talks to apply our technology to make it also physical. So we envision that this type of technology can be put into every paper banknote in the foreseeable future.
So that is fascinating. So there's a couple of things you pointed out there which I didn't know. So first of all, I didn't know it costs that much to create a traditional banknote. You mentioned 20, 30 cents for a $100 note. I didn't know that. And also while I was researching about Tangem notes, I didn't think about governments and these Tangem notes being used by nations for their own sovereign cryptocurrencies. So that's fascinating as well. So what does your roadmap look like over the next 6 to 12 months? You mentioned that you're already present in some places in Singapore and Hong Kong. Do you have any particular target markets that you want to enter, or any kind of customers or that you are looking to attract over the next, in the next sort of 6 to 12 months?
Right. So I think we have some numbers in our head that we're trying to achieve, and we're pretty confident how to get there. So I think like the 6-month horizon for us. So right now we're in very early pilot mode. So the whole technology is fully production ready. But there's only a few thousand people in the world, like maybe 2,000-3,000 people in the world that actually have our nodes with them and are using them, and are hopefully happy about them. Like most of them, actually, most of our early adopters are exceptional people that spread the word around and are so happy about it and are very enthusiastic and come back to us with more ideas and all of that. So it's just a few thousand people now. But in the next 6 months, we want to get to about 100,000 people around the world, maybe in 20, 30 countries. We know how to do that through multiple types of distribution. And that is still very early stage for us. But the next year, I think, will be already like, well, we have to start about millions. We have to start thinking about millions, because again, the ultimate goal is to make it a truly mass market product for billions of people around the world, because we know that it is useful. It can bring value to everyone, at least to the 2 billion people that already know about Bitcoin and ready to try, and they have a little bit of disposable income to get into this. All they lack is a good way to actually go to a store or somewhere and get Bitcoin without spending hours learning about software and how to secure your wallet and all that. So without all that effort, they just want a simple way to own and use Bitcoin. And I think we can target that pretty effectively. And personally, I'd really, what we're working on is a roadmap that would allow us to get to the first billion and maybe to the first 2 billion within 2-3 years, which is extremely aggressive, but at least like that's the number we have in our mind and sort of the focus. And to do that, I think already like it's a sort of a B2B2C product and strategy, and the B2C part, like the customer end, it's already pretty much solved for us, especially if it's an early stage customer who just wants to get to buy a little bit of Bitcoin and to experiment with it, not necessarily to use it daily, like to go to Starbucks and buy some coffee with it, but just to have it, to maybe use it as a gift or just to have it at home. So for those customers, we already solved the user experience. But the B2B part of B2B2C, the merchant integration, that's what we're working very hard on, because it's still a challenge for like 7-Eleven retail chain to put it in their stores, because it's Bitcoin, it's the pricing is volatile, and you might have heard that some retail chains are actually selling Bitcoin around the world, but what they're really selling is most often not Bitcoin. What they sell is just they take a fiat money and transfer them to a centralized platform, which is usually an exchange. Like let's say Bitpanda is doing it in Austria, I think, and some other countries. In Taiwan, you can go to Family Mart and buy Bitcoin, quote unquote, and they give you a piece of paper. But then there's a second step. You have to go home. You have to register on that centralized platform, whether that is some local exchange or some other service, and then you have to do KYC, all of that. Then you have to get your own wallet, and then they can transfer money there. So it's not really buying Bitcoin. It's actually just transferring your fiat money to some centralized entity. So what we want to do is to sell Bitcoin in those retail chains without a second step needed. So you go to 7-Eleven, you buy this plastic card. There's no second step because the plastic card is Bitcoin itself with the chip inside. And for that to work, those retail chains, they have to integrate with entities that will do real-time conversion of fiat payments to cryptocurrency. So it's very territory specific. Every territory has different regulation, different local players, different banking systems. So it takes a lot of effort to manage that. As a company, we have, again, focused on just hardware technology. So all of those commercial aspects and integration and business aspects, in every country in the world, we're trying to find and select 2-3 perfect partners for us who will get like the bulk of the margin for like all of this circulation and new business. But at the same time, they will allow us to focus on what we do best, which is hardware and technology and security, but they will manage the monetary services around that process. So once that is solved, I think it can scale to every single place of retail business in the world very quickly. And we're working on that for the next 6 to maybe 12 months.
Well, so I must say that it's a fascinating and a very ambitious project, and I hope that it works out, and I wish you the best.
Well, that's always, very good to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Like us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Telegram, and subscribe to our newsletter on decrypt.asia. This is your host, Tushar. Thank you for listening.